about this endless love I know. What you give to me is not for me to keep. It's for the world to see your love. Every day you're giving me your kindness. Every day you're giving me your love. Oh, with every single breath I am reminded that what you give is more than enough. So I'll give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Yeah, you make me shine, you make me glow. You pick me up when I am feeling low. I wanna sing, I wanna dance, and give everyone a chance to hear about this endless love I know. What you give to me is not for me to keep. It's for the world to see your love. Every day you're giving me your kindness. Every day you're giving me your love. Oh, with every single breath I am reminded that what you give is more than enough. So I'll give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Can't keep it to myself, gotta share it with someone else. Your kindness overwhelms my heart, my heart. Can't keep it to myself, gotta share it with someone else. Your kindness overwhelms my heart, my heart. Oh, what you give to me is not for me to keep. It's for the world to see your love. Every day you're giving me your kindness. Every day you're giving me your love. Oh, with every single breath I am reminded that what you give is more than enough. So I'll give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away. Give a little kindness, give a little kindness, give a little love away.
Turn me down a little bit, Jonathan, if you would. Let me move back. I've got to use a mic. I was going to use a mic anyway, but my voice is terrible. So hold on. Let me get from under the speaker. When I went down there to get them to hurry up, there were 10 will not sing boys down there. So they're sitting down there waiting for them. So good evening. How is everybody? I hope y'all are well. I'm going to have to drink coffee during my talk because I've got a wedding on Friday and I've got to have a voice. Tonight is an overview. I've got way too many slides, so I'm going to hurry through some of them because I don't want to waste your time. And tonight is, like I said, is just an overview of the whole trip. Then we'll get more specific as we go from here. Just to remind you of a couple of things. I was going to play a game with y'all, but I decided not to do it. Jonathan, hold on. It was working earlier. It just beeped. Hold on. I just went through all these slides with this thing. All right, Jonathan, you're going to have to be my slide guy. You can go ahead, and what we'll do is we're going to turn the lights off so y'all can see the slides well, and then I'm going to talk to y'all. There we go. All right. This is the Middle East. If I was going to play a game with y'all and see who could name most of the countries. But we don't have time tonight to do that. So just imagine how much fun that would have been. This is the main countries that you need to know are over here. We've got Israel and we've got Jordan. That's where we're going on this trip. Syria is number 2. Israel's number, 1? And Jordan's number 5. These are the answers to all that. Some of those I can't even pronounce. And it's also really too small to read. This is a good map of what it looks like today and how the countries are divided up. And then this is Israel. Where we'll be going, you see the Dead Sea. You see Amman, Jordan, which is across from Jericho. And then you've got down at the very bottom is where we're going to Petra. And I'll show you another map where that's going to be in just a second. This is a satellite view of the same thing. As you can see, the Dead Sea is split in two. In our lifetime, unless Jordan and Israel are running they're running a pipe from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. If that is ever completed, then it will not shrink. But in our lifetime, it will be down to next to nothing. This is Amman. And many of us don't think of Amman, Jordan, as being a modern city. Amman is extremely modern. On our drive from Amman to the Dead Sea, you'll see just absolute poverty. But Amman is a beautiful city. We're not going to be able to spend much time in there. The airport is brand new. It's just gorgeous. And it's one of the most beautiful airports you'll ever go through. This is our Dead Sea Hotel. Okay, this is not really our Dead Sea Hotel, but this is a Dead Sea Hotel. Most of the hotels on the Dead Sea have a Dead Sea water pool, which is you float, you can't sink. It's very salty, one of the saltiest seas on earth. Then they have a freshwater pool, and then they'll have another type of pool that's warm. And all they are beautiful resorts, and so one of those resorts we'll stay at, and as soon as we get more information, we'll know. This is how it was divided up in the Old Testament times. This one doesn't have a pointer, but you can see the kingdom of Edom, and that's where Petra is, way down there. And then the kingdom of Moab is where we're going to be staying in the Dead Sea Hotel. And then you see up here the kingdom of Ammon, and you see Ammon, it's not marked on here because it was not a city yet, but it's right down there across from Jericho. It says Ammon, it's a dash, but that's where we're flying into, and then we're driving all the way to the Dead Sea, and then the next day we will go to Petra, which is down towards at the bottom. As you know, Petra is the home of the Nabateans, and it's also Herod the Great. His father was Nabatean, his mother was Jewish. And so he came from this area. This is called the Treasury. This is the one that's been on so many movies. It's actually not a treasury, it was a tomb. Napoleon's army generals were shooting at the little thing on the top because they thought, rumor had it, that it was filled with gold. This has been there since probably about in the 1, 2, 3, 4 AD. It's when it was carved completely out of stone. They don't know who was in this tomb. There's no writing, but there's a good amount of symbolism, and it was classical Greek is how they built their city, which was carved out of stone. It's amazing. It's a sheer rock cliff that you walk down. Now, we are not going to walk down. We are going to either I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to ride camels, or we're going to ride in little carts, or on horses. Now, I'll talk about that at the end of our time, but we're not going to waste time walking down because it's long. It's about a 1.5 mile, 2-mile trip, and it's very flat. It's not, and you'll see a gully cut in the side of the hill. This whole area was so dry that anytime it rains, it forces great amounts of water into small spaces. People get killed every year in this area because they're traveling or hiking and they don't know what they're doing. Now this thing, what it does, it collects every drop of water, and that's how they survived. And you'll get to see that. And that was carved into stone probably at the end of the BC era. Now we're going to ride something in because it takes too long for us to walk down, because I want you to have time to see a good bit more of the city. When I did it, we walked and we weren't able to see. There's a lot more of the city that usually don't get to see, so we're going to do that. And so that is not included in your price, but I'll negotiate that, and then I'm going to collect money for that up front. Then if you want to walk back, that's one thing. You might want to do that, but that's up to you, and we'll make those decisions later. On this trip is Masada, which is the Jewish fortress that was held down in 72 AD. It's absolutely neat. I mean, you take a cable car up. You can walk that path up, but you're not. And you can walk down that path, but you're not. I had a man one year that walked that path down, and they had to send an ambulance halfway up. They didn't have a real ambulance. They had to go get him with a cart and some other stuff. Jonathan, what happened? All right, where are we? There we go. Masada, this is looking at the Dead Sea from Masada. Masada is incredible. It's not a Christian site, but it's a Jewish site. All Israeli soldiers have to run that path in their full gear as a part of their final training, and they have they're reminded that the Jewish people held out as long as they could until at the end they committed suicide instead of being taken captive by the Romans. You can still see the ramp that the Romans built. It's incredible. Masada is a great site. This is part of the temple that was up there. It's a 3-story temple that Herod had built. It's been more restored than this picture. This picture is probably 10 years old. I'm giving y'all some older pictures just because I already had this put together. Now, it's incredible now. They've restored it much more. There's still wallpaper that was drawn on the wall from 1 AD. This was built before the birth of Christ. And so it's incredible. And you walk downstairs and see all this. That's the oldest. That's why they gathered. That's why they found the pieces that the Jews used to draw lots to who would kill their family and then who would kill themselves last. And they left one person alive so that the story could be told. This is Bob's story and Sandra in the Dead Sea. I don't think that's Sandra. That's somebody else. I don't think her feet are that big. But in the Dead Sea, you can't sink. These are my kids. I took my kids in 2009. This was their senior trip, so I took them to Israel. And we took some other kids their age, and we had a great time. The Dead Sea mud is cool. There's wind, Folan. And if you rub the Dead Sea mud on you, you're supposed to have better skin. I've tried that. It doesn't work. Camels, you see camels all over the place. Camels weren't really a part of first century Israel, but they were there. And so you can feed a banana to a camel with your mouth if you want to. Then we go to the Church of the Nativity, we go to Bethlehem to spend the night. This is going to be a neat trip for us because we're probably going to stay. There's 2 really neat hotels. I've asked for the newest one, and so we're probably going to stay there. St. Joseph Hotel. That's where we stayed last time, or the last 2 times. It's an excellent little hotel and very friendly folks. And there we'll see the Church of the Nativity. We'll see some other things in Bethlehem. These are older pictures. The newer pictures, for those of you that have been with me before, the Church of the Nativity is well lit now and everything's restored. You can see all the paintings that the Crusaders did. They drew pictures of themselves on the columns in the 1200s, and you can still see all these today. There's also, in these pictures, it's missing some of the mosaics on the walls because in the last 5 years, they've discovered more mosaics when they replaced all the windows. So all of those are absolutely gorgeous. This is Lillian Wysong. She is trying to figure out what's in that hole, and that is the hole over the spot where Christ was born. It's a 14-pointed star, and because of the 14 generations from Abraham. And this was the star that was stolen in the 1830s that started the Crimean War. And so it was brought back, of course. If you notice, too, a swastika was a Christian symbol in the first century of the church. This was the only piece of that mosaic you could see about 9-10 years ago. Now you can see almost half the floor. They've restored and discovered more of it. This is Stars and Bucks Cafe in Bethlehem. It is totally making fun of American materialism. And I did make a shirt from there later. Also, while we're in Bethlehem, we are going to the Hope School. That's the school that we support. And we will spend a little time there with those kids and some of their teachers. And then they will come back that night, and there will be students and teachers that will eat with us, and you'll get a chance to talk with them personally. I'm suspecting we're going to have a fairly large group, so it's too big for us to eat there at the school, and so it's going to be really cool. This is a map of Jerusalem in the first century, and I mean how it lays over the first century today. The Damascus Gate is where we'll be staying, right out there. Jerusalem is an extremely safe city. You can walk anywhere at night, most any time of the night, and there's if you're in a group, you don't worry about anything. It's very safe. I've walked through the old city with about 4 people at night when all the shops are closed. There's a mall that we go to, have sometimes. There's also the district where all the young people hang out, and I don't fit there anymore. But we go there, there's a metro that comes right by the Damascus Gate, so we take that, and we'll go there and get ice cream and do all those things and just walk. And it's more of a modern part of the city. You'll get to see, this is at the time of Jesus, what Jerusalem looked like. You'll kind of get a sense of that. This is looking over the city from the garden of Gethsemane. This is where Jesus wept over the city. It's called the Golden City because the entire city is made of this Jerusalem stone, which, by the way, is mined usually in Bethlehem. There's the Dome of the Rock, built in the 400s. Just beyond that, you can see the domes of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is my favorite place in Jerusalem. It's incredible. We'll be able to walk all around there. If the Temple Mount is open, we will walk up there. It just depends. The thing about a trip like this is flexibility, because you don't know what may change at the last minute, and it always may change. This is the old city that we'll walk through. You'll be overwhelmed because it'll be crowded. The most difficult process that they're having right now is finding us hotel rooms. It's going to be crowded in Israel because everybody has pushed their trips back because of COVID. And so it will be crowded, but they are really good about moving people around and getting you to where you want to go. This is the Dome of the Rock, and you can see right over there to the left of it, the dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I could spend days in that church and be happy with it. These are just pictures that we've taken at different places. These are the pools of Bethesda. The land level at the time of Jesus was about 40 feet below what the level is currently, because every time something was destroyed and the Romans destroyed everything, they just dumped everything. And so you can see the original pools down at the bottom, and you have to go downstairs to be there. That's where the angel stirred the water, and the guy, was waiting for somebody to put him in. This right beside St. Anne's Church, which is a beautiful, beautiful place to sing. It's very plain, but the acoustics there are incredible. Garden of Gethsemane, some of the olive trees date back to the 2nd century, the root systems. When Rome destroyed Jerusalem, they cut down every olive tree for about 10 miles. But some of the root systems survive, and some of these trees are 1,200 or earlier years old, the root systems. This is the Church of Nations at the Gethsemane. It sits over the rock that is believed where Jesus wept before he was crucified. This is the Dome of the Rock again, that is the 3rd highest Muslim site on earth. The 2nd is up there as well, and then the 1st is Mecca. That's a little rabbi. I thought he was so cute. Now, just to give you a sense, you see that the one on the right, you see that arch? At the time of Jesus, that was 50 feet high. So you can understand how much lower the ground level is than it is now. So at the time of Jesus, Jesus would have walked on that road. You're about to see a little bit of that road, and it was about 50 feet tall, that highest arch. If it's possible, it may not be. Sometimes you can take that and you can go through and see the temple. I forgot the name of it. But you can walk through the Temple Mount and be on the other side and end up at St. Anne's. Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. It depends on what's going on the Jewish calendar. Now, that, of course, is the western wall, or the Wailing Wall. You see that edge right there? Those stones with the border are Herodian. Herodian means built in the 2nd century. Now, then under that would have been stones that were used in the old wall from Solomonic times. Above that are stones that were added by the Muslims when they controlled Israel. Those are the prayers. If you go with me, we're going to take prayers from our churches, and we will, every time I've ever gone, we've inserted names of every member of our church into the wall. And if you go to another church, you'll be more than welcome to do that as well. But you do that, and about every week they're gathered and they're burned on the Temple Mount by rabbis. And I don't believe it's magical. I don't get into that. But I just think of it as a holy place. Same thing in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, same thing in church in Bethlehem. And so I will often light candles for some of our sickest folks, and then send them a picture of me lighting a candle, remembering them in those holy spaces. And that's meaningful to them. That's an arch that was discovered. The ground level was way up above that when the Israelis came in. There was a Palestinian city, town right here, and they just demolished it and took their land and made the Western Wall. So you can understand why they're mad all the time. It'd be like somebody coming in on Brown Street and taking your house and just saying sorry. And there's always that conflict. This is the road that Jesus walked on. The steps, and you see how it's crushed, because when the Romans destroyed the temple, they pushed the Temple Mount and all the blocks and everything onto this street, and it just crushed the street. And so you'll be able to see that. That has been discovered in the last 15 years, has been cleared. So you'll be able to walk the streets of Jesus. This is the priest that was over the Church of St. Anne. I became friends with him going back and forth, and he invited us to his house. And we had about 10 of us. We went to his home, and then he said, "You want to see something cool?" So he took us up on the roof of the place there, and it overlooked the Temple Mount, and it was so cool. And we had tea with him. He's since gone, and now I heard he's dead. So I don't think he'll be able to do that again with us. Y'all can laugh. This is that street, again, that I told you ended in the arch. And so Jesus walked on this street. These are the very stones that Jesus walked upon. There's a strong possibility that this is also the place where Jesus took over the temple cellars, because there were so many booths here in this way. They probably was the place where they sold things to be offered as sacrifice. Remember I told you I took the girls, we're on the teaching steps. The very steps that Jesus used have been discovered, and they go up to the Temple Mount. Actually, they go into nothing. They go into the wall. But they were the steps of the 1st century, and so you can walk on those. This is also how Jesus would have gotten from the top of Jerusalem to the bottom. These are steps that Jesus walked. Pilgrims will start at the bottom, and they will walk on their hands and feet all the way up to the top at Easter and during times of Lent. Let's see. And this is at the house of Caiaphas, where Jesus was held overnight. That's a powerful place to see. I have never been here. This is the pools of Siloam. Jesus healed a blind man here. This part has been discovered in less than 5 years. And there's a street that leads from this pool to the old city that is all brand new and has only been open for a year, that we will be able to see and walk upon. It is underneath a Palestinian village, and so you can understand, because all the digging has made their houses shake and made some of their houses fall. Of course, the Israelis don't care about it, but it's all working now, and so you can walk on that street. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I know I'm going fast, but I want to give time for questions. Is that okay? Is that okay with y'all? Is this a good speed? Okay. Church of the Holy Sepulchre, 1890 picture. If you look on the window above the door to the right that's been sealed, because Christians can't ever get along, so the Muslims sealed the door because Christians fight so much. There's always a monk fight at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. About 5 years ago, about 10 of them got sent to the hospital because they beat each other with candlesticks. There's a group of 6 denominations that run the church, and you can only imagine they're always fighting for position. what happened here if 6 churches owned this church. It was just what it is. That ladder was put up there. They can't take it down because one group owns the window, one group owns the seal. Here is the ladder today. It has been there since 1830. It's been there since 1830. That ladder is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But every time I go, I take a picture of the ladder. One day, about 10 years ago, it was removed and there was a revolt. And so they had to put it back. These are some of the domes. All that is gold and all that is beautiful. And that's incredible that Jesus is as big as this, half the ceiling. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is just remarkable. They've redone the edicule, and they've redone all of this stuff since these pictures. So everything's bright and everything's clear. The edicule is the place where Jesus was raised, and they believe, and I'm pretty about 80-90% sure that it's over the place where Jesus was raised. This is the roof of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre over the Armenian chapel. And this is where the little Ethiopians live. They live in little closets and little hovels. They've been there since the 1870s, but some of them have been there since the 1100s. I don't think they've bathed since then, and so they're smelly. But they're sweet, and they love to see you, and they love for you to give them $1. And so I always do. You go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, there is graffiti all over the church. If you look at that cross, it dates from 1380. The date is written in Latin, and that graffiti was carved into that wall in 1380. And so you see, and it says up above it, I love Jesus. And so, but they did it with a crayon. I doubt it will last. That is the main rotunda over the edicule. That's looking at that main dome. It's just, I love this church. I think there are parts of it that date back to the 600s. There are other parts that date back to the 400s. This is the Stone of Unction. It's kind of hokey pokey to me, but they believe it was the stone that Jesus' body was laid on before he was put in the grave. I don't know. But the Orthodox Church loves it, and they take all their souvenirs and they put it on the stone, and then they kiss the stone. That's kind of gross to me. This is the edicule. This is the small space. You can go in there. We'll wait in a long line. I'll be ugly to people that try to break in line. I'll use my ugly voice that says, no. And because they try to break in line, and that's just the way it is. In their culture, they don't wait in line. In our culture, you ain't going by near us. Greek Orthodox priests can marry, and this was a priest, and he was holding his grandbaby. That baby was baptized earlier that day, and I talked to him later, and he didn't know English very well, so I had a guy to translate, and he said that was his grandbaby, and he's just so excited today. And so there's some of us standing with another Greek Orthodox group that is in the front of a chapel that goes down to a cistern that dates to the 1st century. I always take my groups there if they're open. And it's really cool because the acoustics in there are neat. It's a large cistern. In fact, it has a little boat down there. It's that big. And it's where they collected water in Jerusalem in the 1st century. So it's been there since then. Most of the water collection sites date back to that. They've updated most of them. As I did a program not that long ago on Bethlehem, Bethlehem is the key water source for Jerusalem. If you want to conquer Jerusalem, you first conquer Bethlehem. Everybody that's ever conquered Jerusalem has conquered Bethlehem first, and then it starves and it draws the city out. On this trip, we're going to Caesarea, which is absolutely beautiful. It's also where Paul was imprisoned. They have the area where they think that he was imprisoned over that site. It's a beautiful site. This is part of the palace of Herod the Great. Herod the Great was he was the great crazy. He was in charge and large, and if he didn't like you, he killed you, and that was okay. Every palace he built had an escape plan. He had ships always constantly at ready at Caesarea in case he needed to go to Rome. He renamed this Caesarea to influence Roman money coming in. This is an aqueduct that he built that comes into the city. It's still there. That's a little bit of our group on top there. There's Lillian riding a camel. I've got some general pictures in here. Now, there's the Sea of Galilee on your left, and on the right is Hartwell Lake. The Sea of Galilee is 33 miles in circumference. Lake Hartwell is 962 miles in circumference. So you can imagine the difference in the size. They call it the Sea of Galilee just because it's always been called that. It's also called the Sea of Tiberias. That's what the Romans called it because they built a city. This is Tiberias. This is where we'll stay. They put us in a real nice hotel here that overlooks the Sea of Galilee. You'll be able to see the sunrise over the Sea of Galilee. It's gorgeous. Usually we get up on the roof, those of you who want to do it, and we go up there and take pictures of the sun coming over the Golan Heights. That is the Golan Heights. Just beyond that hill is Syria. So it's a very rough area over there, beyond that, several miles especially. But the Israelis have created a buffer zone, and so it's really not a bad trip. Also, they have jet skis on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus rode a jet ski. I include this picture just to remind you that their sea is just like ours, and they rent jet skis on them. And you can be on a holy boat and singing Amazing Grace, and all of a sudden a jet ski will come and circle you. Nothing makes you feel more closer to Jesus than being circled by a jet ski. This is Capernaum. This is the city of Jesus. This is where Jesus headquartered his ministry after he got run out of Nazareth. If you remember, at Nazareth, they said they tried to kill him, and he poofed, and he disappeared, and he got through them. Then he came to Capernaum and ran all the rest of his business and his ministry. The Valley of the Doves, this is the road that Jesus would have taken to Jerusalem. Beautiful valley. We will walk up a little bit of that valley so you can see how gorgeous it is. A lot of people hike from here to Jerusalem. It's a pretty good hike, and a lot of people are doing that now on the Echo Tours. We'll do that in a couple of years. This is one of the boats on the Sea of Galilee. It looks like an old boat. It's not, and it's hokey. I mean, I'm just telling you, they put up the American flag, and you sing the national anthem, and everybody hoops and hollers, and then we sing Amazing Grace. And so this is another place that our groups didn't get to go last. This is called Beit Shem. It's one of the most well-preserved cities of Roman era. There was an earthquake that destroyed it, and so they built it back, and they're continually working on this. It's huge. And Beit Shem is also, there's a big hill that is called Tel Beit Shem, and that is where Saul and his sons' bodies were hung in the Old Testament. They were hung from the walls of Beit Shem. Those walls don't exist. It's just a tell now. But you can walk up the tell as well if you want to go up there. These are us at Beit Shem on Roman toilets, and you can see Kathy Wysong was having a movement of the Spirit. Those were public toilets for the theater, and you can imagine how gross that was. And they'd have running water underneath, and also slaves in there to take care of some other business. So now, then we go spend the night in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a very modern city. It's like Atlanta. There's nothing old about Tel Aviv. You can go a couple of miles north, a couple of miles south, see old stuff, but in the city itself, it's all brand new. And then we will spend the night here in Tel Aviv, have our supper there, and then we will go from there and go to the airport. This is my favorite picture. That's Linda Marsh, who's since been deceased. And we'll have a communion service there at the Garden Tomb, which the British believe is the place where Jesus, and the Anglican Church believes is the place where Jesus was crucified and buried and rose from the dead. It could be, it's not, but it could be. And it doesn't matter where, just know that it's there. So, and we'll have communion there, and it's just a beautiful moment to me. Now, a couple of things about the trip. Somebody asked this. You don't have to get shots to go to Israel. Can I get somebody to turn on the lights for me? Will somebody turn on the lights that's a little quicker than John? All right, let's talk business for just a second. I have included this sheet that has all the pricing. I've highlighted and changed some dates. And I meant to do color and I forgot, so it's gray and circled. The trip cost is $37.98. You will never, probably in our lifetime, see it ever that cheap. And the reason is because they want us there. I insisted that, this will be my 17th trip. I insisted, I've got enough clout to say, I don't want to fly out of Amman. Okay, you ask me why. Because Amman, to get to Amman from where we'll be in Galilee, it will take us 5 hours. And usually the flight leaves really early. Because you've got to cross the Galilee Bridge, and which takes forever. Now, we'll do that coming in from Jordan, and it'll take a while. And they've got, on the Jordanian side, the toilets are nasty. They're a hole in the floor. So please go before, I'm telling you. All our ladies had to go in the hole in the floor, and they said that was an experience. It's tile. Okay. Now, I insisted that we fly out of Tel Aviv, which is much closer, and that'll save us 3 hours, all right? And it's a lot easier because we're not going into another country. Now, he said to me initially, he said, Alan, I'm going to tell you that's going to make the price go way up. I said, I don't care. I'd rather have more time on the ground than time in a bus. Then when he called me, he said, Alan, you're not going to believe this, but the air pricing, if you fly into Jordan and out of Israel, is cheaper. He said, I've never seen that before in 35 years of tours. The reason is they're trying to get folks there. Because what we had to do was we had to buy 2 one-way tickets. We had to buy one, and those are expensive. We had to buy a one-way ticket from Atlanta to Amman, and then we had to buy a one-way ticket from Tel Aviv back to Atlanta. Now, we're probably going to go from Atlanta to somewhere in Europe and then down. That's usually what they do. I hate it. We're probably going through that German airport that I despise. But there's no way around it because there are no direct flights from Atlanta to Tel Aviv or Amman. There used to be. It would cost about $150, $200 more, but it was worth every penny. There's no direct flights. So we can't do it. Usually we fly through New York. It's awful to fly through New York. If we do, it's going to be wonderful. But it's awful because a lot of times I've been caught with a snowstorm or something, and we had to spend the night in New York, which was horrible. All right, so the trip is $37.98, which is a great price. Now, it includes airfare. It includes 2 meals a day, 2 hearty meals a day. You can eat as much as you want. The food is good. I like the food. It works. Now, if you want, it does not include lunches. Usually what I do is pack crackers and eat crackers for lunch. They like for the host to eat lunch, and so usually they'll give me a voucher for lunch, and so I'll have to eat lunch. But when I'm on a trip, I usually don't do it. I just eat crackers. But sometimes you just get hungry and you want, and it's usually about $10 a plate, and it's usually everything's good, and their soups are good. They have really good soup. They have, the food to me is better in the Palestinian areas because they're not limited by Jewish food laws. Remember, you can't have dairy and meat at the same time in Israel. So you can't have butter with your rolls when you have steak. Or you can have fish, and they have fish in the morning. It's just weird. You just have to live with one. Tracy one time carried butter into dinner, and it fell out of her purse, and it was an international incident. But the maitre d' ran over, pushed it under the table, and we found out later that if it had been seen, they would have had to close the restaurant. They would have asked everybody to leave, and they would have had to hire a rabbi, which is pricey, to come in and bless every utensil, every plate, every cup, every saucer, every dish in that hotel. So I'm saying they're very serious about it, so you just don't do it. $37.98. All right, what it doesn't include, tips and miscellaneous, and that's what I've got for you. The guide, it's a little less. It was like $49.50. It may not be that much for sure, but I just rounded it up to $50. The driver's $30. We're going to do a shirt. Everybody's going to wear the same shirt because it gets us through customs much quicker if we all look alike. Those of you that, if you travel with groups are horrible unless you have a matching shirt. And then when they see one of us, they'll see all of us, and we will go through as a group. I'm telling you, every time. And my daughter will design the shirt so it won't be tacky. The $15 Petra fee is what I'm going to do to try to negotiate for us to get camels, horses, and carriages so that we can get to Petra quick. You're not going to miss anything by going quick. You'll still see everything, and I promise you, you'll be glad we did it. Miscellaneous is $10. Everybody, say for instance, a guide takes our bags off the bus and puts them at the airport for us in Tel Aviv. Then I tip him. You won't need to do that. All the tips will be covered. Anything above and beyond will go to the Hope School. I prefer a check written out to me because some people gave me cash, and I have to have it because I have to put it all in different envelopes. And so I'm like a bank. And so what I did last time is if I had $200, I got two $100 bills. It was just easier than me carrying two $101 bills. There's a minimum of 15 deposits by July 15th. And that really, I would encourage you to do that sooner than later because they can't do anything until they get those deposits in planning and doing this trip. This price and everything is based on a minimum of 15. Now, if we have 25, it could possibly go down. I don't know. But if we don't have 15, we can't go. So tell your friends, try to get folks that you know are interested. I have been enough. I will promise you, I will cut out the stuff that isn't meaningful, and we will spend longer at the things that are. I've been enough, I know. Like the church where John the Baptist supposedly lived, it doesn't do anything for me. It's nice, it's pretty, but I would much rather you spend time in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre than driving an hour to go see a church and then driving an hour back where there are pickpockets all around. And I've been enough to do those things. I've also been enough to try to do some things that nobody ever does, and I'll start working on that as soon as we get the trip. The guide is a guide that we used before. I trust her, and I will email her immediately and say, okay, these are some things different I want to add to the agenda that aren't going to go through EO, that are just between me and her. And every day we make decisions on where we go. And so so that we can do Masada, you're not going to see the place where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. But I will point it to you, and I will say that's it, because all you do is you see some ruins, and then you look down, and there's some caves. That's all it is. Now, then you can say you've been, but we're going to drive right by it. So I'm going to say, you see that cave right there? That's where. But wouldn't you much rather see, because we're going to Masada, the cave where David spent the night and where he snuck out and took Saul's knife? And we will be right beside that. And you will see that because we're not going to Qumran this time. So, and I have an advantage of doing those things. Like I said, a minimum of 15 folks, and I need to know who as quickly as possible so that I can start sending them information. First deposit, $600 due by July 15th, plus 100% of travel protection. Okay, let me tell you about that. You've got to get the insurance. For a $4,000 trip, you've got to get the insurance. Now, do you have to get it through EO? Because it's expensive through EO. It may be $300, it may be $200, I don't know. You don't have to get it through EO. I'm just telling you, you don't. I get mine through USAA because that's my insurance company. And with them, it's only $150. For one trip, it was just $100. But you've got to make sure and read the fine print. It's got to say cancel for any reason. Say, for instance, you've scheduled the trip, you've booked the trip, and you have a death in your family on October 30th. You can't go on the trip if you want to go to a funeral, okay? So you need to have the insurance that says that you can cancel for any reason, not just, for whatever reason you want to, you've got to be able to cancel. So make sure, and that's your responsibility. It's not mine. But I would check your personal insurance companies first and go with them. And then look, you'll get a brochure. I'm trying to do this because the deposits are due pretty quick, and that's why I'm doing tonight. But the insurance stuff will be on the EO brochure, and you'll see that, and I'll make sure you get it. Second deposit is $1,200 by July 19th. That's why I'm saying the $600 ought to go a little bit earlier, and then the $1,200 by the 19th. And the final payment is due no later than August 15th. And that's when all the money has to be in. And that's why I put the questions about the insurance. Okay. Who has a question? How much money should you take? Okay, go ahead. Okay, thank you. I meant to put that on the sheet and I forgot. Today was a crazy day. We delivered 780 boxes of cereal today. All right. If we have enough, I will charter a bus that will leave from our parking lot to the Atlanta airport. And then I will make it so that he comes or she comes and picks us up and brings us right back here. If we only say if we have 30, we'll do that. If we have 20, then I'll get drivers and we'll take our buses, and our buses will drive us down there. And it'll cost, if you charter a bus, it's surprisingly how little it is if you got a big group. But I'll take care of transportation. It will cost a little extra. We'll have to pay for gas for our vans, but, we'll do that. You can leave them in our parking lot. It's lit and safe, and the police drive through. Or you can, whatever you want to do. But what I do is I just leave my truck down here, and the parking lot is lit now. Now, Al Davies, on our trip to Paris, he got his truck broken into, and it was so bad because his was the worst looking truck out there. Our car didn't get broken into, and it was the second worst looking one. I can't, but you do, we'll make arrangements or whatever, but we need to leave all together because I'm telling you, we've got to be together. Now, some of you will have your family members that want to take you to the airport. I'm okay with that as long as you get there on time. The key to this trip is always being on time. If you're late, you and I will have a talk, because if one person makes us late in the morning, it messes up the whole day. You get calls in every room. When you get to a hotel, you put stickers on your bags. They deliver them to your rooms. It's an easy trip as far as luggage. Now, walking, it's a little bit difficult because you've got the Petra part, which changes things. It's very uneven. Nothing. Oh, we're going also to Herod's Fortress. We're going there too. There's nothing that is ADA. Nothing. So, if you are interested on this trip, and I'd start walking a little bit every week just to be in shape. Now, I'm not going to leave anybody, you know that, except the man on the side of when that guy got stuck up there on Masada, our guide wanted to leave him. And I said, we cannot leave him. And he said, no, we're going to leave him. I told him not to walk down. And so we stayed. But anyway, what else? Money, I'd take about $51 bills. You'll use $1 bills a lot. You'll also buy water. On the buses, there's always water available. It's $1 for water. The bus driver makes money on that. The bus drivers get, $3 a piece per person. So they don't make a lot. And, but they're incredible. And then the way the tips are set up, if you want to give extra money at the end of the trip, say you really liked our guide or you really liked the bus driver, that's up to you. But this is the minimum. And I always take care of my drivers and my bus and my guides because they take care of us. Yes, don't take any, you will not have to get any money changed over. You don't take traveler's checks, nobody takes them. And your credit cards will work everywhere. And I use my credit card everywhere I go. That's why I take a lot less cash than I used to. And if you buy something, if you use your credit card, you get the best rate. It's better than cash. You get the rate that the credit card is doing that day. When we're in Bethlehem or when we're in other places, if you want stuff shipped home, shipping is incredibly expensive, but it's also guaranteed. So if you buy a manger scene in Bethlehem and it comes here and it's broken, they'll send you another one. And those are the kind of shopping, kind of people we deal with. It's not cheap, but you'll be able to do those things. Weather is the same as the beach at North Carolina. They're on the same latitude as North Carolina, and it could be 90 degrees at the Dead Sea, and it could be 60 degrees in Jerusalem. The Dead Sea is the lowest place on earth, so it's usually warmer. We will go swimming in the Dead Sea. You've got to do it. And we'll do those things. But like I said, I've been there in Jerusalem, and it snowed in January. I was there the year it snowed the first time in 60 years. You should have seen all the Palestinians running around. And you're going to notice the dissimilarities between the two worlds. Bethlehem, they ration water. Right across the valley is an illegal Jewish settlement, and they water their lawns. And you're going to see why they are so angry at their Jewish neighbors. But I love Israel. I support Israel, but they sure do treat some of our Christian brethren pretty poorly. In 1970, Bethlehem was 75% Christian. Now it is 13% Christian. Because why would you stay? There's nothing to do, nowhere to work. It takes you 2 hours to get to Jerusalem, which is only 13 miles away. So you'll see that stuff. It's interesting. And you need to see the way the world situation is. What else? All right, let me give you my email address. It is rallenstewart, RALLENSTEWART, rallenstewart@hotmail.com. I've had it for 25 years. rallenstewart, my email address for this was Juno. Most of you don't remember that. rallenstewart@hotmail.com. My cell number is 706-436-5534. That you email me or text me or call me with any questions, anything. Now, the key to this trip is flexibility and a sense of humor. If you don't have those two, you're not welcome. I'm serious, because if we don't have flexibility, things can change, and you got to be willing to do that. Just change at the last drop of a hat. And if you can't do that, you don't need to go. I'm just serious. It'll be a spiritual high. We'll have devotionals every morning. Some of you will lead those. It's just going to be the trip of a lifetime. The other most important thing, this is on your second sheet of your handout, are the numbers to contact. Okay, everybody look at me. Do not mail a deposit check. I cannot tell you how many got lost last year. Call them, and you can give them your checking account number. Call them, and you can give them, not your checking account number, your check number. Sorry. But do your deposits over the phone. Any questions about that? Please. Is it on? Oh, it's on the last page of the itinerary. There's both numbers. I do not know yet. It just depends. So we won't know. We'll probably fly Royal. One of those will probably fly Royal Jordanian, which is fabulous. Yeah, Lufthansa is. Yeah, that's true. But because we're going into Amman, it's probably a high probability we'll fly into Amman on Royal Jordanian and then fly back on Lufthansa.
How long does it take to get there?
Way too long. 12 hours. But see, we will have a break. We'll fly from Atlanta to wherever and get frustrated, and then fly from there to Amman. And on that flight, it's not frustrating. Just take an Ambien and go to sleep. but it will break. It'll break it up. It's probably 7 and 6 or something like that.
Part of the trip, it might be less safe than others, or you very concerned at all?
No. I've been 15 times to Israel. There's never, one time it was Ramadan. And Ramadan, the Palestinians or the Muslims can't eat during the day. They have to fast. And so they get mad, they get hangry. And so we were at a restaurant, and this was right around the corner from our Jerusalem hotel. Bob Story, it was that same trip with Bob Story and Sandra, and we were all in there, and we were just eating French fries and snacks, and there were some Muslim kids here, and one of them said something ugly about America. This is the only time I've ever felt uncomfortable. And I was like, Bob said, okay, now listen, we got to get these women out of here. He said, now I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I said, well, let me try one thing first. So I moved over and I sat with them. I said, are y'all in college? What are y'all learning? Tell me about your education. Completely changed. And we left all laughing. I'm telling you, Jerusalem is safe. I mean, you don't do stupid stuff, but we'll all be together as a group. And so we'll go, and if say one night you don't want to go into the place, it's Benihana Street is the name of it. And he's not Japanese or Korean. And it's this great street, and they usually, on Sunday nights, all the Korean interpreters come and sing Christian hymns in English. I mean, and the street is closed, and so it's a mile of just shops and seeing young folks and people that just are glad to be alive. And this, and this in the Jewish section, so they're all Jews or Christians. So, yes. 11 days. November 1st through the 11th. The 1st and the 11th are travel days. So it's 9 days of touring. That's usually the way it works. Yes, Kathy. We'll talk about those kind of things at our next meeting. Little things, because a lot of times the hotels don't have washcloths. It's just little things that are weird. You can drink the water anywhere we go. The water's safe in Bethlehem, safe also in Caesarea, and safe also in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv.
About how many different hotels will we stay?
We're staying at the Dead Sea Hotel. We're staying in Bethlehem. We're staying in Caesarea. We're staying in Jerusalem. And we're staying in Tel Aviv. So there'll be 5 different hotels. What they do is they make you put your suitcase out in the morning, and you'll go to breakfast, and then when you get on the bus, you make sure your suitcase is there, and then everything gets put on by somebody else, and then breakfast is buffet, dinner is buffet. It's all you can eat or whatever you want to eat. It's different. It's different kind of food.
I read they were pretty shut down over there.
They are today. Tours are starting in June. And right now, if you go to Israel, you have to stay for 2 weeks in your hotel room. That is going to change as of June. And then, of course, in November, everything will be open. Now, they may require proof of having the COVID shot. They may require that. So just know that that's going to be a requirement. And that's going to be a requirement to travel anywhere. Jennifer, don't you think so? I mean, okay. And probably right now for international, you have to prove you have it. So, any other questions? Sorry to keep y'all over. You can't go. I mean, or you have proof that you can't do it. And I don't know how that works. And I may be wrong, and hopefully I am, because I know 2 that want to go that are not going to get the shot. They can't. And so I'm hoping that restriction is going to be lifted, but I don't know. If you pay your $600 deposit and something happens, you get all that money back. So, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. All right, so remember, we got to have 15 or we can't do it. It'll make the price go up if we don't have 15. And so we just can't do it if we're less than 15. Yes.
So if you call them to make a deposit, you tell them,
18599. That number right there gets you full access to so many things. That's sarcasm. But that puts you on this trip. This trip is marked under 18599. Bye, guys. Okay. You can pay the upgrade. Now, I did check into that 1 year, and it was $3,000 more per person. Yeah. Well, I mean, she could pay it, but you know. Now, what you could do is if, say, for instance, we do fly Lufthansa and you have airline credits, you might be able to upgrade with that. And you probably could do that. Depends on whatever airline we're using. I think, I don't know. If you have to use credit, you probably have to call the airline but you can't do that till after you get your ticket numbers. So, all right, I'm going to hang around afterwards for anybody that has any questions. Thank y'all for looking at all my pictures and all that kind of stuff. And so, all is good. Jonathan.